Thank you so much. Over the past 12 years, my job as curator of medieval art at Museum Katerijnenconvent has changed dramatically. Having started out as a classical museum curator, sitting behind my desk, mainly concerning myself with the institution's own collection and research on it, my role has mutated into that of an exhibition maker. All this means that there is no longer time to produce collection catalogs or books highlighting our greatest treasures. Where exhibition used to be mainly the responsibility of the curator, nowadays the influences of other departments, such as education and marketing, has become more apparent under the watchful eye of the project leader, who has a fundamental vote as well. All these people know from their own experience what the audience want. Exhibitions are developed by the project group, but with what result? I would like to discuss with you today the pros and cons. What do these developments mean for the profession of curator? The collection of Museum Katerijnenconvent consists of a unique historical and art historical objects from the early medieval period to the 21st century. This collection offers an insight into the Christian art and culture and the history of the Netherlands and its influence on Dutch society. Museum Katerijnenconvent is a medium-sized museum with more than 150,000 visitors each year, mostly national, and we organize 3 exhibitions each year, with a curatorial staff of 4 to 5 people. As a national museum, we are assessed by the Netherlands, by the Ministry of Education, Culture and Science on the basis of visitors' numbers. That is what determines the funding we receive. In other words, no visitors, no money. Exhibitions are our main selling point. Visitors come to see the exhibitions, and in case of Museum Katerijnenconvent in any way, not to see the permanent presentation of our collection. This is in contrast, for example, to the Amsterdam Museum or the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, where visitors, mainly international, are coming to see the building and the permanent presentation instead of temporary exhibitions. So in case of Museum Katerijnenconvent, the management decision to focus the staff's effort entirely on exhibition makes perfect sense, but with what result? And what are the consequences for the role as curator? Nowadays, I'm no longer the classic curator, but mainly an exhibition maker, including all the more recent additions such as presenting introduction films, documentaries and vlogs, hosting press receptions, radio and television interviews, and giving lectures to different types of publics. To illustrate this development, I would like to show you some pictures of last week, when I was in Norway for my upcoming exhibition entitled North and South European Masterpieces Reunited that opens this fall. In this exhibition, we will bring together objects from the 12th to 14th century from Norway and Catalonia in the central part of Western Europe, in Museum Katerijnenconvent. These works of art show numerous stylistic parallels, which is of course really fascinating. Here you can see 2 altar frontals, which were originally placed in front of an altar table. The left one is from the south, the right one from the north. If we can take a closer look, we can see clearly the comparisons. The way the panels are painted with strong contour lines, bright colors and figures placed within painted architectural frames is very similar. However striking these similarities may be, the purpose of this exhibition is not to prove a mysterious Catalan-Norwegian connection that has remained unnoticed. The aim is rather to show the objects of similar characteristics once existed all over West Europe, but have remained only in the north and the south, as survivors of a shipwreck. Together with my curator colleagues from the University Museum in Bergen in Norway and the Episcopal Museum in Vic, Catalonia, I'm preparing an exhibition catalogue. The deadline for this book is next week, June 11th, so this is a quite stressful moment, and in this case I feel like the good old classic museum curator, but last week was very different. Together with my colleagues of education and a professional filmmaker, we wrote a film script. Because how can we explain a difficult story to a broader public about a period in which there was a cultural unity in Western Europe? It's a compelling thought that a Catalan traveler visiting a country church in Norway around the year 1250 would have no difficulty whatsoever understanding the purpose of the different liturgical furnishings and vessels. And he would have immediately recognized all imagery found on the altar, the walls and the folds. Besides myself, a photo reproduction of the Virgin sculpture from our collection from about 1240 was chosen as the main character for the documentary. She becomes the starting point. The documentary starts in the museum, where I, as curator, ask myself the question, what was her role, what was her function in the 13th century, and why did she, as one of the oldest objects in our museum, survive? To answer these questions, we have to travel to the north and the south of Europe, to reunite the Virgin Mary with other elements from the 12th to 14th century altar, and we compare her with her sister-like companions. Since I was responsible for this replica, I had to find the solution to move her around. We made her actually sized, so she was too big for a normal suitcase. The filmmaker sent me one day before we started our trip a list of specific makeup equipment I used for my face. The sound engineer wants to know if he was able to cut in my selected outfit to make the wires of the microphone invisible. Does this sound like a normal day of the curator? To be honest, I really love these aspects of my job, but I can imagine not everyone does. What do we expect from our future curator colleagues? Hereby my first statement. Is art historical knowledge still enough, or do we need someone who can present an interview, host events, give lectures, and who can be a regular guest at radio and television shows? What effect does these developments have on the study of art history at the university? Does the museum curator still need to include media training, development presentation skills, or do we still prefer a student with a master's in research or even a PhD in art history? Another consequence of the change from classical curator to exhibition maker is that the staff working in different departments of the museum now play a much greater role than before in organizing exhibitions. While once the curator would have sole responsibility for almost everything from the concept development to the execution, today the colleagues of marketing and education are also involved in matters of content, under the watchful eye of the project leader, who has a vote in the exhibition content as well. Sometimes this can be quite challenging, when you need to convince members of the project team that have not much feeling with the topic of the exhibition, or when they need a particular loan which is essential. That colleagues can ask me, why do you really need that old wooden plank? That's not so funny or impressive as you think. Do you know how much that costs to transport that to Utrecht? In these cases, I long back to the time when I was the curator who had a casting vote. Each staff member has a different area of expertise that informs his or her vision of what the people want. These interests can sometimes be contradictory. Since all project members need to be satisfied, the exhibition can become a compromise. And is this really the best result? In consequence, each exhibition is developed by the project group. But at the end, during the opening and at the press presentations, the curator remains the face of the whole campaign. Is this a good development or not? Thank you for your attention.